Hi, I'm Lens of Truth, and today I'm going to talk about the 3D platformer of 2017. Yooka-Laylee.
Oh no! I've made a huge mistake!
Alright, so maybe Yooka-Laylee didn't quite live up to expectations. First in a line of prominent 3D platformers releasing in 2017, Yooka-Laylee was set to be the spiritual successor to Rare's 3D collect-a-thon trilogy on the N64. And in that sense, I think it succeeds. I'd put it above the blundering Donkey Kong 64 and middling Banjo-Tooie, and say it vied with Banjo-Kazooie. What I'll leave out is how little I care for Rare's 3D collect-a-thon trilogy on the N64. That's a topic for another day. However, there was one aspect to Yooka-Laylee that stood out almost immediately as something I should address. Unfortunately, it's a design decision that undermines the very essence of the game. So without further ado, let's talk learning moves in Yooka-Laylee. I read a quote recently by Game Informer's Jeff Marchiafava. He's talking about Breath of the Wild, but I think the quote is much wider reaching than that. In the article he says, "I shouldn't have to spend hours upgrading my character in order to make the game fun. It should start fun and only get better from there." Oh hi Yooka-Laylee. It should start fun, Marchiafava says. Well then, let's look at the opening. Right at the beginning of the game, something is painfully apparent. Yooka and Laylee's moveset is limited. You start off with only the ability to lick, run, jump, and double jump. There's no attack yet, so exploring Shipwreck Creek is absolutely pointless, because there are no collectibles, just breakable looking objects you can't break. Let me repeat that. In the opening moments of this 3D collect-a-thon, there's nothing for you to collect, so there's no reason to explore. Kinda sends the wrong message, doesn't it? Yooka-Laylee's opening reminds me of the intro stage from Mega Man X, a game where you find upgrades. I love the controls in that game, mainly the dash jump. It's really the heart and soul of the game. But playing the intro stage is always a pain because you can't dash yet. It's an upgrade gained later. So in the opening parts of both Mega Man X and Yooka-Laylee, you're forced to play each game in a way it wasn't really intended to be played. Mega Man X is a high-octane action platformer with fast movement. Without the dash, it's just classic Mega Man. Not to put down the classic series, it's just that the X series is different, but you never know that from the first few minutes. Yooka-Laylee is a 3D collect-a-thon. Without, well, almost any abilities at all, it's just a debug room. Now let's check the opening of Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, another game that sees you learning moves. In that game, your starting abilities are the same as in the prequel: charge, jump, glide, breathe fire, plus the new hover. These abilities worked beautifully in the 3D collect-a-thon Spyro the Dragon, and work just as well here. So having not yet learned the new moves while playing this first level isn't a big deal. It's still a 3D collect-a-thon through and through, and the player will know that straight away. Again, Marchiafava says, "I shouldn't have to spend hours upgrading my character in order to make the game fun." Let's get back to Yooka-Laylee. We left off in the opening area, Shipwreck Creek, with breakables we can't break, an inaccessible area, and no incentive to explore due to lack of collectibles. Thankfully, Trouser the Snake is right over here. Get used to this guy and his punny name, because he's the one you'll learn all your moves from. And this first one's a freebie, the Tail Twirl attack. Now you can go back to the Grove and break the treasure chest for quills, which finally gives you an incentive to explore. But there's still this cannon guy you can't help, and this wall you can't climb because, and this is where I want to focus, you don't have the right moves yet. This first move you learn, the Tail Twirl attack, which also increases your jumping distance, coupled with the roll move you learn in the next section of the hub, seemingly fills out your moveset. There's still this next to useless lick, but you can live with that. So you jump into your first world, after spying 2 pages you can't collect, and are quickly met with things you can't do yet. Told you this would be a recurring theme. Like this shooting gallery, or waking these totems, or butt slamming these hieroglyphs, or grabbing an ice berry to fire into this Ghost Rider's mouth. The good news is that the moves you need are learned from Trowser in this level. The bad news is you have to find him and pay Quills so he'll teach you the moves. This means you'll have to explore the base world to a limited extent to scrounge up enough Quills and then buy the moves. Then you're able to re-explore the world to a less limited extent. At this point you have enough moves to collect the requisite number of pages to expand the world to its full size. Worlds are unlocked in two parts, the base world and the expanded full world. So you exit to the hub, expand it, and dive back in. Alright, so it took some finagling, but now you can complete the world, right? Wrong. Even with the new sections, there are still things you can't do yet, like activating the switch underwater, picking up a cannonball so you can walk through this harsh wind, or gliding to this ring mission. Actually, you can make the jump over here, but you can't complete the mission without the glide, as far as I know. And what the heck are you supposed to do here? Oh, it looks like fun over there, but I'm over here. How do you get more abilities, you might ask? Well, trigger the boss to make the next world available, find it, unlock it, find Trowser in it, and pay him enough Quills. And maybe someday, you'll actually be able to finish this first world. In summation, this move learning order interrupts what you're really here for. In case you've forgotten, you're here for exploring and collecting. It's a 3D collect-a-thon. Your first pass through the world is incomplete. You're mainly searching for Quills so you can go back and buy Trowser's new moves. And you'll want to buy them all at once, as opposed to going back and forth every time you get enough for the next move. Ain't nobody got time for that, so you'll have to grab every last one within reach. Now with the new moves in hand, it's time for a second pass through the world, this time hunting for pages. Once you have enough to unlock the full world, you have to exit to the hub, expand it, and dive back in. Then you start your third pass, triggering the boss and building up a stock of Quills and pages, hoping to circumvent this convoluted process when you start the next world. But there's still things you can't do yet, so you leave and start in on another world, and eventually return here with all the moves so you can complete it on your fourth pass. Ugh. But wait, don't other games do the same thing? Like Spyro 2? Yes, but in Spyro 2, the levels are smaller, and there are only 3 moves total to learn. The swim and ladder climb locks are giant telegraphs, so it's pretty easy to remember their locations, though the head bash lock locations are admittedly harder to remember. So any backtracking to complete levels is confined to a small area, a minor nuisance at worst. This move learning style is also present in Rare's 3D collect-a-thon trilogy on the N64, to which Yooka-Laylee is a spiritual successor. Here the style is executed in almost exactly the same way, but as you may recall from my first video, and as hinted at earlier, I'm not a big fan of Banjo or Donkey Kong 64. What's the point? Why focus on learning moves? Aren't there more egregious faults in Yooka-Laylee, like the awkward double unlocking of worlds, or the sloppy movement and camera controls, or the plethora of frustrating challenges that make Super Mario Galaxy's Dreadnought Garbage Dump Star look like a walk in the park? Look at it this way. In 2017, we've seen the resurgence of the 3D collect-a-thon. We could be seeing many more of these games in the near future, and I think a fair number of them will follow Yooka-Laylee's example with these moves. The problem is, it creates this unnecessary retreading of every level that undermines the spirit of the 3D collect-a-thon. It's supposed to be the search for the collectibles that pushes the player to explore every crack and crevice, not this obligatory comb the level with my new move just in case I missed something. A 3D collect-a-thon should be all about exploring, but when multiple sections of each world are locked away by any number of unlearned moves, it instead becomes a chore, a glorified to-do list, and you're forced to tackle it in small chunks. Monotony is not the way to reanimate a genre. Thank you so much for watching. I should probably note some of the things I liked about Yooka-Laylee, since it did give me a topic to discuss. After learning most or all of the moves, I had a good time collecting stuff. The jump boost from your attack, the roll, the glide, and the high jump all feel pretty good, once you buy them of course. And after getting a hang of the controls, most platforming sections were enjoyable. I loved the gloomy gem grotto in Glitter Glaze Glacier. I think Yooka and Laylee are pretty likable, especially compared to Banjo-Kazooie and the DK gang. The soundtrack has some good tunes too, specifically the chords in Glitter Glaze Glacier. Looking at some of the games I played this year, it's probably safe to assume I like collect-a-thons. Next I've got to try A Hat in Time, but no physical release? And it's not finished yet. And one day I'll get a Switch and play Odyssey.
But it is not this day!
Finally, would you kindly like, subscribe, share, and comment? Tell me your thoughts on Yooka-Laylee and other collect-a-thons. And you can like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. Those are great places to find my in-depth thoughts on the game. So, until next time.
Trouble with the trolley, eh?